Wow, I wonder how long this has been sitting here for. D8H. G'day, I'm Bruce, and in this video we're going to have a look at this old Caterpillar D8H. The whole machine's just about being consumed by nature. When you look at the lantana and the trees, there's a fig tree growing up through it there, and rust, fair bit of rust on it, but I don't know how long it's been sitting here for, but I'd say it'll be a long time. This one's got the fig tree growing up through the bottom there. I think it's a Moreton Bay fig. If I break a piece off of here, it'll have milky sap. See the milky sap? You get that when you have a Moreton Bay fig. Here's the blade. It's been reskinned quite a few times. Gee, this whole thing would have done a lot of work when you look how many times the blade's been reskinned. You can see on here, with bulldozer blades, after a while that just wears through. You can see it's nearly worn through there. So rather than take the old piece off, they just whack another skin on the front. And you can see here, there's another skin, another skin, another skin, another skin. Normally too, if they strengthen this part up, you can see how this here's probably had a bit of extra put on it here. Sometimes they strengthen that up a bit more because sometimes they use these to push scrapers. That's why that's got to be strong. They come up behind a scraper and that'll be the part they'll be pushing on the scraper with. It's still got some stickers on it. You can see the D8H on there. I don't think these are period correct stickers, but those other ones up on the front there, I reckon they would be. You can see them there through the brush. It's got one ripper shank on it, which is fairly well in the ground. Place for another one there, another one here. Over the years you can see this one hasn't been re-welded. This one has. Somewhere in the past, that's probably cracked out around there and they've had to see all the different welds here where they've probably had to weld that back up. You look over here, that's probably the factory welds there. When you look here, this has probably been welded up before. That may have cracked there before. This one here is definitely cracked before. See how this one's sort of, they've done stitch welding to try and strengthen that back up. And down here too, you can see where that's been welded up through there. So I guess it would have done a lot of hours of work. When they sink the rippers into the ground, you can imagine there's terrific force on the rippers trying to pull back. And they can crack out around here, try and break the back out of that, especially if they're ripping along and they hit a big rock or trying to tear stumps out of the ground that are really big and old. Rock's probably the worst, but from what I could see about it. You know something's been sitting a while when a tree starts growing up through it. If it was left here a real long time, a Moreton Bay fig would just keep growing and growing, and it would just engulf the whole machine in time. Have a look at this for a crook hydraulic hose. Look at that, they're nearly as solid as a hunk of steel. I'll just have a bit of a look at the grouser plates. I think they may have even been extreme service ones. They are very wide. If you had the normal ones, I think they're just a bit narrower than that. And of course, when they were new, they'd probably be up to about here somewhere, I'd say. And all these, you can see they're getting that round look about them. They've done a lot of work. And of course, when you're looking in here at the sprockets, originally the sprockets would have probably been a bit more meaty, and you can see they're getting sort of stretched out. Originally that would be a perfect half a turn in there. You can see how it's sort of getting longer. This part here is growing longer. And of course we feel up under here, feeling the bushes run in there. The ants are having a go at me. Yeah, well, the bushes aren't worn through. They're worn, but they're not worn right through. Some days people run them until the bushes wear right through to the pins. There's probably too many ants there for the cameraman, but that's the bush there. And if you feel that there, you can feel there's wear on like the bottom half of the bush. It's the bottom half of the bush there. On a lot of real big machines, they used to push these pins out. You might have to have a 100-ton press to push them out. They turn the bush a half a turn, turn that bush a half a turn, so the bottom part here is like new again. They press the pin back in. They call it turning the pins and bushes. The ants have made their home here, but of course, if you have wet weather and that, the ants in Australia always try and go uphill, try and get away from where it's going to be wet. When you look down here at the trunnion looks in pretty good nick. Actually, I've seen other dozers where you can nearly put your hand through there. But yeah, I don't know whether that would be original or not, but that part's in pretty good condition considering. The other thing too, when they have a bull tilt blade on them, rocks and earth coming around the corner here actually wear the side arms. And if you look down here, what happens, the first thing they do is that gets worn right off. And the side arms can actually get worn right through along here. So they put these cheek plates on the side. It's probably had another plate here, possibly. And like that would probably be the original part. But if you look down the bottom here, the bottom part would be a lot more worn than that, because the dirt coming around the corner of the blade, dirt and rocks, of course, when they turn as they're manoeuvring, and that part gets really worn. And if you see one that hasn't got any plates on there, it's probably had a pretty easy life, or it hasn't done much work at all, especially it might have been on soft black soil or something like that. Whereas if they've worked on rock or on hard country, that will be more worn. And a lot of times too, when they do these crisscrossing, that's just welds on there. Sometimes they'll even use case hardening rods to build that up, in the hope that there's just the dirt's just sort of run across the top of it rather than just chewing straight into it. These on the side here, that would have probably been like the cutting edge off the bottom of the blade possibly, and they've made that up as they call it a side cutter. If they got that sunk down in the dirt, that's like a cutter. A side cutter they call that, and you can see where they've built that up as well there too. You can see the pit marks on the blade rams there on the shafts. What can happen too in some circumstances, if they're pushing rock and they're really pushing a lot of rock and stuff dribbles back over the edge, rocks and that can hit there and sort of damage the chrome too. At some stage in its life, it probably would have had a tree spear on here. The tree spear would be mounted on here, and the tree spear would be sticking out to about here. And if they come across a really big tree, they'll rip around the base of the tree, try and rip all the roots off as close as they can get to the stump. Then they'll come along with the tree spear, they'll lift the blade up as high as they can, and the spear will spear into the side of the tree, where they can strike the tree a lot higher off the ground to see if they can push it over. And the higher you can strike the tree, the more leverage you can get on it. Yeah, the radiator's still in there. It doesn't look in too bad a condition. This is an excellent idea when they hinge like that. You can undo a couple of bolts over there and you can hinge this back. Obviously you can only do that on the top one, but if they've got that on both and you can hinge them back to clean the front of the radiator, that's a really good idea if you can do that. Not only the ants have moved in, but the swallows. They're a bird that likes to build with a mud nest, and you can see where they've been building up in there. I'll see if I can get up into the cabin near the engine. The engine's apart on this one. The cylinder heads have been pulled off. The turbo's gone. Intake and exhaust manifold, they're all gone. The pistons are out. Sump's off. I can look down and see the ground there. I'll just move in around here so the cameraman can get in there and have a closer look. There's a shot looking down at the crankshaft. Unfortunately, the journals where the big end bearings run have gone rusty over time. It also looks like someone's put some tape around a couple of the journals. You can see it's had some sort of a covering over the top of the block there, but as years have gone by, that's just rotted away. Yeah, with crankshafts, if you can always check the inside of the throw for wear. The outside might feel good, but the inside could feel pretty bad. In a machine like this, well, the crankshaft's got rust on it, so to make it back into a good engine, then you'd probably have to regrind the crankshaft anyway. The early model D8H was 237 horsepower. Then the next one they bought out, the later model D8H, was 270 horsepower. And then when they went to the D8K, it was 300 horsepower. When they got the D8Ks, I don't know whether all of them, but I believe most of them had what they call a spacer plate engine. And you'd have that, and you'd have a gasket, and you'd have a plate that was probably about 3/8 of an inch or half an inch thick. You'd have a gasket, a plate, another gasket, and then the cylinder heads. So if they're talking about a D342 with a spacer plate engine, that would be the later model engine. There's a shot looking down the left-hand side of the engine. It has got a very unusual canopy on it. Maybe that this was just the original structure here, that curved box iron on both sides to here, and it's probably been working in heavy scrub, and that once they do that, they call that a scrub canopy then. The moment they put down bars or whatever over the engine. Some places out west they do that just for a bit more shade out in the middle of Australia where it's really hot, and they're trying to close this in too to try and keep the sun off them. There's the seat, or what's left of it. And if you look over here, from memory, I can see something written on there. I can't even read it myself, but I think that before you actually went into gear, it's a power shift machine, and you'll see it's got forward on this side. This is probably neutral here. All that's seized up now. But anyway, I think you can just make out first, second and third going forward. Then you come across here with this lever, and that goes back to reverse. I think this was just a safety thing, and I can't remember. I think the safety is on when it's there from memory, and you folded that down. Once you folded that down, then you could move this lever. So you'd be forward and reverse, and that'd be neutral in there. If you look over here, you've got blade and ripper control over here. You've got your turning clutches and whatever on here. You've got your turning brakes and whatever down here. Oh, they're all seized up too. Must have been sitting here a long time. I guess that would have been part of the throttle linkage or whatever, just sitting there. Yeah, look at the gauges. It would be, there's an hour meter there, but I don't know whether the cameraman can actually see it. It would be interesting to know what's on it. It's probably not the original meter, but as you can see there, there's the hour meter. It's only got 231 hours on it, but obviously it would have done a lot more than that. The hydraulic tank would be here under the seat. I'd say that's a filler there, I'd say. This would be fuel here. It's got fuel written on it. No, she's rusted on there. Here's what's left of the bonnet. You can see Mother Nature hasn't been very kind to it. Where we are here today, we are fairly close to the coast too, and our prevailing wind is usually from the southeast, which is coming off the ocean and blowing all across this area, and that's why everything probably rusts so badly, salt air. If you're about 1,000 kilometres west of here and you looked at a machine there that's lived out there all the time, probably hardly any rust at all. No salt air blowing that far away from the coast. The transmission's still in it, down below here. This is probably the outer for the exhaust pipe. The exhaust pipe probably would have went up through the centre, but even that is pretty rusty. That's a swallow nest that's fallen down out of the ceiling. The little fellas used to get in there and that was their nest. There's another swallow's nest there, or the remains of one. See these little tubular things? They go up inside there, and oh well, the bottom's fallen out of that one. You can see the feathers and that there. But this is a perfect area for swallows because they need mud to make the nest. And when you look out the front there, there's a whopping big dam, so they haven't got to go too far to get the mud off the edge of the dam, come back here and make the nest. The internet is a very big place, but also a very small place, and there's bound to be somebody out there that would look at that machine, and the moment they saw that canopy, they probably know more of the story about this machine than what we know about it. Somewhere along the line it's been pulled apart, but he must have a full rebuild kit to do the engine. Obviously the crankshaft would have to come out of the engine and probably be reground. And then, you know, if it was someone that was really keen, possibly they could come along and put her all back together and get it going and make it into a working machine again. The question for the viewers is, can it be saved? Is it the sort of machine that could be put back to work if it was all rebuilt, put back together? Or is it the sort of machine that will only ever be a parts machine for somebody that's already got a D8H, they did a transmission, final drives, any other bits and pieces that would still be usable off it? So it'll be interesting to see what the viewers say about, can it be saved or not? Let me know what you think and leave a comment in the box below. It really is a large piece of steel, but it is the sort of thing, it doesn't have any computers, doesn't have any fancy electronics on it. It is the sort of thing, if it was done up, if the engine was done up and if the rest of it was okay, it's the sort of thing that could be put back to work again, and you haven't got to worry about any electronic computers or sensors or any other sort of stuff that the modern stuff has on there to drive everybody crazy. Well, it's starting to get dark now, but the cameraman and I were just passing through. There's probably plenty of people out there with stories about these old dozers, So feel free to leave a story or a comment. It would be interesting to hear some more stories about D8s. That'll be about it for this video. So until next time, thanks very much for watching.